everyone, welcome in to Next Round Preps. John Lunceford, Jerry Young here as we are now getting down to the final 2 weeks of region play for most teams. Some teams will keep going all the way through the end, but we are now officially in week 8. But Jerry, before we get to week 8, let's go back, week 7. We didn't really see a great game with Thompson and Oak Mountain, but there were still some other games to talk about.
Yeah, we got a few to talk about, and you're right, John. That game, I don't even remember the score. It was so many points. It was so many points, in fact, that the people who were running the scoreboard lost count.
That's right. Because there was a point there, they didn't put an extra point up there, so 68-7, but they had 67-7 on the scoreboard. Luckily, in the record books, it was corrected.
And you had a real good statement there. You'd looked it up. I think Thompson was just 3 or 4 points away from setting an all-time record of points scored at Thompson against an opponent. But, of course, this is the most points scored in a Mark Freeman era. So, yeah, good night for Thompson and a good night for a whole bunch of other people that needed the win to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of brackets are slowly but surely starting to take shape. We actually did have some region spots get locked up this past week. None in Class 7A, but in 6A down, I think most, if not all, 1A through 6A had at least some spots locked up this past week. But a lot of these are basically de facto region title games, even though we're not quite to that point. Team, like for instance, Thompson, all they got to do is beat Tuscaloosa County this week and they lock up the region, or beat Hoover. It doesn't even matter, one or the other, and they lock up the region. There's a lot of scenarios like that. We'll kind of go through that as we go through some of these games. Down south, a team we always keep an eye on, TR Miller. They got a big one over Escambia County. In that one, it was close between TR Miller, St. Michael, Escambia County, Bayside Academy, and Satsuma, all fighting for 3 spots in 4A Region 1. And TR Miller got the big one there, 42-7. Now Escambia County, a lot of work to do if they want to try to get in. American Christian, 44-31 winners over West Blockton. They are number 2 in that region behind Bibb County, who beat Montevallo 34-0. So Bibb County now looking good to be your region champ there in that region, kind of the Central Alabama region there down in 4A. Oak Grove and Corner both fighting for position. Corner currently your region leader in that region. They win 42-13 over Oak Grove. Oak Grove's still alive, though, to potentially get a 2nd seed. All the teams there, I think it's Dora and Northside are the other 2 teams in competition right there for those 4 seeds, but they're all in the playoffs at least. And then we move up to Class 5A. Scottsboro, a team that is now coached by Chris Bell that used to be at Oak Mountain, and they're looking to make a good playoff run as well.
Yeah, we knew he was going to be successful there. He's successful everywhere he's been. And you're right. I think this is, pretty much they still got Scottsboro still got Douglas to play, which is, I don't know if Douglas is really going to play into this at all, as they are in a losing streak now. They lost 4 in a row. I couldn't remember how many. So that game's still to come. But they beat Sardis 41-21. Sardis now in a 2-way tie, the way I see it, with ARAB.
Yeah, they are still fighting for position. Scottsboro looking good to get that 2nd spot behind Guntersville there in Region 7. Another big game, Ramsey and John Carroll. We've kind of wondered what John Carroll would have this season after starting off unbeaten that first half of the season, but they're running into the tough slate right now in that region.
Yeah, and we've been saying this all year. John Carroll had a kind of an easy first half of the year, and now they're getting into the meat of it. They play Ramsey, of course, 28-0. Ramsey shuts them out. But, John Carroll going to play Jasper next week. And Jasper's not a very good football team at all, so they'll get well a little bit next week and probably still make the playoffs.
Yeah, John Carroll's still most likely a playoff team there behind Ramsey Pleasant Grove. We'll see where they fall compared to Winona. Down south in Class 5A, BC Rain. How about this? Upsetting UMS Wright. I would say it's an upset. At UMS Wright, they win 31-21. That then puts UMS Wright in a tough position where right now they are not currently in the bracket as I have things slated. Now, still plenty of action to go down there, but looking not great right now for UMS Wright. The thing is, UMS Wright's only even in the position they're in because of the forfeits Viger had earlier this season. Viger already beat them, but they got a forfeit win out of that, or else they would basically be out of the playoffs right now. Kind of shocking to see that. For UMS Wright, I imagine they will drop back down in the new competitive balance because they got upset in the playoffs last year as well. Up in 6A in the Montgomery region, Wetumpka and Carver, both fighting for position. Carver currently in the lead of that region down in Region 2. 38-7, Carver gets the win over Wetumpka. Now Carver and Pike Road will play. I believe not this week, but next to determine top seed there, with Tumpka looking like your third seed in that region. Moving up to Region 6, Shades Valley and Pell City, a matchup to kind of help determine. It's so weird when you say Pell City has no wins, but they're still technically alive for the playoffs because of having some close games and everything, but didn't go their way this time.
Well, you knew Ruben Nelson. He probably had this one circled. I don't know why I say that, but only thing I'll say about that, Pell City still looking for their first official win.
Yeah, they beat Center Point, but that game got forfeited. They're appealing it, but we'll see what happens with that. I don't know if the AHSA will give them that back or not. So Pell City, they do lose 24-21. Now Shades Valley and Pinson Valley this week, actually, for that final playoff spot. Pell City will not make the playoffs in Rush Probst's first year. Parker and Mountain Brook, another upset here. I would lean upset just because Mountain Brook has been so good. Former 7A Region 3 team, they dropped down, but Parker getting a big win.
I don't care who you are. It's hard to beat a Chris Yeager team. I mean, he's always going to have them prepared, always going to play good. Parker came in there 13-10. They're 5-0 in the region. That drops Mountain Brook to 3-1 in the region. Remember, Parker's only loss was to Pleasant Grove, and I think that was by 1 point. So Parker, a very good football team.
Yeah, Parker up in 6A. They've been in that 5A region before with Ramsey, Pleasant Grove. They've played both of those, beat Ramsey, lost to Pleasant Grove, like you mentioned. Here's the crazy thing about Mountain Brook. We'll talk about they're playing Mortimer Jordan this week. That loss not only makes them where they're not going to win the region title, it could potentially drop them all the way back to fourth, depending on what happens with the rest of their schedule. They've looked good so far, but, got beat pretty bad by Vestavia. Beating Hoover doesn't mean what it once did. Right. And, they play a team like Parker, and Parker drove down at the end of the game and scored a touchdown to win this 13-10. Speaking of Gardendale, 61-49, that's who Mountain Brook has, not this week, but next week. They have basically worked their way in. The Woodlawn coach messaged me on Twitter to say, hey, we're not out of it yet. I left them out of it, but technically not mathematically eliminated. Neither is Minor. But Gardendale looking strong now, getting a win 61-49 there. Ben Russell and Pelham. Pelham trying to work their way in the playoff. Probably not going to happen. They fall to Ben Russell 41-14. They have got to beat Homewood this week if they want to try to get in, but Benjamin Russell, big winner 41-14 in that one to continue to stay strong for the playoffs. In 6A Region 4, big matchup between two teams that typically have a close game, and this one was still close between Hueytown and McAdory.
Yeah, it was. Hueytown, well, we said that. This is a rivalry game. Hueytown and McAdory, for some reason, kind of, it's always been a rivalry, but a 5-point game, 20-15. The Golden Gophers both, could still make playoffs. Yellow Jackets are, well, let me back up. Hillcrest is obviously going to win that region.
They're number one.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. So, these two teams, this game was very important. It's going to affect the outcome of Region 4 in the 6A classification.
It is. You got Central Tuscaloosa and Bessemer City sitting behind them as well, trying to fight for those playoff spots. Hueytown, McAdory. Hueytown basically up to number 2 now with that win, 20-15 over the Yellow Jackets. All right, up to Class 7A, another upset here. Bob Jones, 31-13 winner over Spartman. Spartman went into the game last week against James Clemens, both unbeaten in region play. They lost to James Clemens, then they lose to Bob Jones. Now Spartman has dropped a third. And the way Austin is playing, upsetting James Clemens 28-7, that whole region is an absolute disaster trying to figure it out. Austin has now worked their way in. They were out as of going into this past week, but now the way it looks is James Clemens 1, Bob Jones 2. They're tied, but James Clemens already won head-to-head there in the Battle of Madison. Spartman is 3. Austin sitting there. Florence is still sitting there. Huntsville still has an outside chance. That region is a disaster, but you can catch it all at alpreps.com. I have the bracketology kind of sort of broken down, but we got to wait and see what happens this week with 7A Region 4. Down in Region 2, a region we typically keep an eye on, Dothan and Enterprise, a close game here, and Dothan inching their way into the playoffs.
I've been telling you, Dothan's a good football team all year. I thought Enterprise was going to beat them. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what your little formula had there. You had Enterprise by a touchdown or thereabouts. So, yeah, Dothan wins by a touchdown. I just really think Dothan is not only good this year, I think they're going to be good the next year or two.
Yeah, Dothan right now, I'm pulling my bracketology up. So right now, the way it stands, Enterprise going into this week was at number 2 because they beat Auburn, having that close win over Auburn. But as it stands right now, Central, if they beat Auburn this week, they're going to win that region. I have no doubt. Number 2, Auburn, because they're only sitting at 4-1. Dothan now up to number 3. at 4-2, Opelika at 4-2. Dothan and Opelika still got to play each other, and then Enterprise now down at number 5 at 3-2. Now they are far from out of it, and especially having that Auburn win will help. But Central beats Auburn. Depending on what happens with the rest of the games, you got a 4-2, 4-2, 4-2, 3-2 sitting there, all waiting to figure out what happens. So it's an absolute mess in Region 2 behind Central Phoenix City.
And here's a little tidbit: Dothan is off this week, and they're getting ready for Opelika. I think that's going to be the game right there that's going to decide it.
Very well could. That game will be October 27th, but Auburn Central is a big matchup. We'll get to that in a second, happening this week. And as I switch tabs, my app crashed. But Baker and Mary Montgomery, I know it's the next game on there. Mary Montgomery continues to remain unbeaten here, 35-14. I had this one as a pick 'em. I thought it was going to be a close matchup, but boy, Mary Montgomery has been impressive this season.
Yeah, they really have. And moving on up the list, Spain Park, Chelsea game. Spain Park beat Chelsea. We thought they would, 38-21. Spain Park, we had them favored in that. But then we go to Hoover. Hoover, could they, hold on? That game was close, John. I think it was 10-10, if I'm not mistaken.
So here, we were going through the scores during our game. We got bored during our game. So we started looking at the scores, and I pulled it up, and I kind of held my phone to both you and Tim back and forth like, look at this score. It was 3-0 Tuscaloosa County getting towards the end of the first half. It's like Hoover has not even scored a point yet. Now they got a touchdown at the end of the half to make it 7-3 and ended up maintaining the lead from there, winning, 37-10. But, yeah, it was a little questionable there for Hoover against Tuscaloosa County.
No, and you had to think, is Hoover really struggling that bad? Listen, Hoover, we all know, got off to a terrible start, but here's the only 3 teams they've beaten. They've beaten Spain Park, they've beaten Tuscaloosa County, and they've beaten Oak Mountain. Now, they're going to get Chelsea this week. We know that'll be. But then they got Thompson coming to town. So not the year at all that Hoover wanted, but they're still probably going to make the playoffs.
Now, just assuming they get the win over Chelsea and the loss to Thompson, that should be good enough based on how things are going. Basically, so Hewitt-Trussville got a big win over Vestavia, 55-27. That basically locked Hewitt up to second, Vestavia to third, Hoover to fourth. County now sitting behind Spain Park. They dropped to sixth because Spain Park beat County. So that one close game between Spain Park and Hoover is basically what is going to decide that fourth seed. And you mentioned they got that win there, but only 28-20, and because Spain Park had like 3 blocked field goals. I mean, they had all kind of issues. Spain Park, it seems like they might could have won that game there, but they're going to be on the outside looking in as long as basically chalk holds this week. And of course, Thompson, they only need to beat Tuscaloosa County this week to lock up the region after beating on Mountain pretty good 68-7 last week. But speaking of Hewitt-Trussville, Vestavia, that was a game we're all looking forward to. A lot bigger blowout, I think, from Hewitt than we expected. I would lean Vestavia to win the game in general, but 55-27, and it's all thanks to our Milo's Player of the Week, who is Peyton Floyd. Rebounded from that Thompson loss the week before. He rushed for 257 yards, 5 touchdowns on the ground, also passed 18 of 23 for 169 yards and 1 touchdown. So he had 6 total touchdowns accounted for as Hewitt did win that game 55-27. So Thompson, Hewitt, Vestavia, Hoover is basically how it's going to finish in 7A Region 3. It's a lot easier to figure that out compared to Region 4, which is an absolute disaster right now, and Region 2, which is an absolute disaster right now, and Region 1, which isn't quite a disaster, but still a little bit of work to be done right there. But anyway, we'll move into that, and we'll talk about the games coming up this week and what it means for the bracket. But first, Jerry, tell us about one of our great sponsors.
Yeah, I want to thank Shepherd Equipment. You can reach them at shepherdequipment.com. It's the easiest way. You can see all their services there right online. They do light demo, and by that I mean if you got a storage shed or a deck or something that needs to be torn down, anything like that on your property, they'll come in, they'll demo it down, they'll put it in one of their dumpsters, which, by the way, they do dumpster service as well. And they have residential and commercial dumpsters, by the way, in 15 and 20 yards. So if you contractors out there looking for a great company to do business with on your dumpster to put it into your job site, you want to contact them as well. But they do that. They haul stuff off. They can get it done for you. They do land clearing, bush hogging, anything that has to do with your land. You need a road built going down to your pond on your property. This is the guys you want to get in touch with. ShepherdEquipment.com, ShephERD, ShepherdEquipment.com, a proud sponsor here on Next Round Preps.
Thanks so much to Shepherd Equipment and, of course, Milo's for our Player of the Week as well. All right, when we get back, Week 8, 2 big region games left for a lot of teams here in the state. We'll look at some of the big matchups coming up right here on Next Round Preps.
Have you or a loved one been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, which is brain changes that are starting to interfere with your life? Did you know researchers have proven that these brain changes can be slowed down or reversed in many people that routinely exercise their brain? At the Care and Thrive Foundation, we specialize in helping you understand the specific areas of the brain that have changed and develop a brain health plan, including cognitive exercises, adaptive approaches, and helpful technology to proactively stay ahead of your brain wellness. Visit www.careandthrive.org for more information.
We've partnered with Who Is Coffee to create the Next Round Blend, available in light, medium, and dark roast. 100% Arabica beans. Specialty coffee roasted on demand, available in whole bean or ground for drip pods. Espresso and coarse ground for French press. Go to nextround.store to get a link to pre-order today. Everyone that pre-orders will be entered to win a prize pack with coffees, shirts, hats, and tumblers. Nextround.store for the Next Round Blend.
Welcome back in here to Next Round Preps. John Lunceford, Jerry Young here. We're now looking ahead to Week 8 of the AHSAA football season. And Jerry, let's start down south with a team we've talked a lot about, Jackson, looking really, really solid. And they are going to host St. Michael, where Phillip Rivers is the head coach. We've talked a lot about Bayside Academy with Barrett Trotter as well. They're taking on Escambia County, so that's going to help determine fourth. Jackson needs a win over St. Michael to lock up the region. So that region is all over the place, but hopefully I like this week right here because this kind of helps settle some things. And you also know exactly going into the last week exactly what you need.
You know, any other time I'd be saying Phillip Rivers and St. Michael be, but I want to tell you, Jackson is a machine right now.
They are.
I don't even know. I think they're going to handle them with ease.
I got Jackson as a 4-touchdown favorite here on my little formula. So looking for Jackson to get a big win here. If they do, they will lock up that region title down in Region 1. Moving up to Class 5A, big matchup here that I would have said would have been for the region title coming into the season because I honestly didn't know anything about how good Southside Gadsden is. However, Moody and Leeds playing this week. I have Leeds as a slight favorite in this one, but Moody, they need to win this one to stay alive for the region title. And Leeds still fighting for home field. If they get the win here, they've already lost to Southside. Leeds needs to win and then hope Moody beats Southside Gadsden to then cause a three-way tie there. Moody needs to just win this, and basically that will set up a legitimate region title matchup against Southside Gadsden in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm going Jake Gaines on this. I just think that Moody is, playing their kind of ball right now, and you said it right. They have to Moody still has to play Southside of Gadsden. The only loss in the region to Leeds. They're 3-1. That one loss to Southside of Gadsden. So isn't it funny how the Gadsden area team got such an effect here in Moody and Leeds? But this is another rivalry game. So, just be aware. These two people down 4-11, they don't like to play each other. They don't like each other. They love to play each other. It's going to be a war.
Yeah, Jake Gannon's done a great job there. So far undefeated in the state. The only loss coming to a team from Maryland they played in the middle of the season. So big game there between Moody and Leeds down in Class 5A. In 5A Region 3, a matchup for the region title. Holtville, they are unbeaten in region play at Demopolis. I like Demopolis in this one. They've been really good all season. Holtville, though, unbeaten in region play as well. So that'll be for the Region 3 title. And I never would have thought this, but both of these teams in this next matchup are on the outside looking in, needing a win to stay alive, and that is Citronelle at UMS Wright. Both are currently sitting outside. UMS Wright gets a win. They'll put themselves in better position, and they need the win to stay alive, but never would have thought I would have said that about UMS Wright here. I do like UMS Wright in this one, though. McGill-Tulane at Theodore in 6A Region 1. McGill-Tulane still fighting for fourth place. A loss will all but eliminate them because they've already lost to a couple of teams ahead of them. Theodore, meanwhile, trying to stay alive, potentially for that second seed, at least get a 3 seed. They're at 4-1. They've already lost to Spanish Fort. They still have Saraland to go, so you have to assume that's a loss there as well. McGill-Tulane at Theodore, both trying to stay alive for the playoffs. Carver-Montgomery at Sidney Lanier at Carver-Montgomery. I guess it doesn't matter. They both play Crampton Bowl. But both, it's always weird. It's like, which one's technically the home team?
Yeah, which side of the field they stand on. That's the only difference.
Lanier at Carver, both are in, but they're playing for first. I mentioned in the first half, Carver, they got the win over Wetumpka. Carver and Pike Road are sitting there unbeaten, but Lanier sitting there with only one loss. So if Lanier can get the win, they could potentially cause some chaos there and still work their way up up to first place. In Region 4, I mentioned Central Tuscaloosa and Bessemer City both still alive for the playoffs. If Central wins, they will lock up that 4th spot in Region 4. If Bessemer City wins, they have already beaten McAdory. So then not only does Bessemer City put themselves in position to potentially make it, they put themselves in position to potentially move ahead of not only Central Phoenix City, but McAdory as well. Then that puts McAdory in a bad position because they lost to Hueytown last week. Still a lot to go in that region, but it's kind of weird saying McAdory's fighting for second last week, and then they could be fighting for their lives if Bessemer City gets a big win here.
Yeah, you and I too, we have a mutual friend that's the Central Tuscaloosa I think he graduated from there. He still goes to most of their home games. Got a little inside information there. His excitement is that this team is playing like they used to play. That's the way he puts it. So, if Damian Stockdale's right, we'll see. But I'm going to have to go with his recommendation, say Central Tuscaloosa is going to win this week.
And they've been good, I believe, in lower classifications, but up in 6A now, causing some damage there as well. So they are at 5-3, 3-2 on the season. They are a game ahead, but they have to go to Bessemer City there just off the interstate and try to get a win there. In Region 3, I always want to say Region 5 because I was always used to be in Region 5 when I was at Homewood. But now Homewood down in Region 3. They're in the region with Pelham, Briarwood, Ben Russell, Helena, Chilton County, Pelham. They travel to Waldrop Stadium this week. Homewood has got to win to try to stay alive for a home field. Pelham has got to win just to even get in the playoffs.
Yeah, Pelham won't do it. I'm going to tell you, Homewood's on a roll right now. They've beaten Calera, Benjamin Russell, Pinson Valley, and Chilton County back to back to back to back. They had an off week in there, but Pelham's just not playing that good. They both got the same overall record, though. That's what's so weird. Same overall record, but Patriots are going to take this down. They're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, Pelham just hadn't been able to do it in region play. Homewood started off with a loss to John Carroll, which didn't look good, a really bad loss to Vestavia, and then a loss to who's probably going to be region champ in Helena, but they have turned it around since then. And they beat Ben Russell, who this week is at Briarwood. They're also fighting for second as well. Briarwood, Ben Russell, Homewood all at 3-1, all of them fighting for that second spot. Homewood and Briarwood coming up next week, but this week Briarwood has Ben Russell.
Yeah, and Briarwood's coming in here, won 4 of their last 5. Their only loss 4 points to Helena. We know how good a team Helena is. So Briarwood, right on the cusp there. But, I look for them to go in and handle Ben Russell pretty easy.
Yeah, I got this one has a pretty close game there, but I would lean Briarwood in this matchup as Ben Russell has to come up to 119 and play the Lions there. Moving on to Region 5, what is actually Region 5 now. The second place matchup that I would not have thought would have been for second place, Mortimer Jordan, 3-1 in that region. They're at Mountain Brook, who's also 3-1, losing to Parker. Here's the thing. I mentioned it before. If Mountain Brook loses, then they play Gardendale next week. That actually would be, if Gardendale gets a win this week, that would be for the 3 seed. Gardendale hadn't even won a game until a couple weeks ago, but now they're on a 2-game win streak, beating J.O. and Minor. Gardendale, Mountain Brook next week, if Mountain Brook loses this week, could be for 3rd place, and Mountain Brook could potentially fall all the way to 4th. I don't think that'll happen, but Mortimer Jordan has looked pretty solid this season, only 1 loss in the season, and that's to Parker. Mountain Brook trying to stay alive for 2nd place in 6A Region 5. In 6A Region 6, we mentioned that Shades Valley got a big win over Pell City to keep Pell City winless on the season. You mentioned Homewood beat Pinson Valley. They've struggled this season, only 2-5, but they're at Shades Valley.
Yeah, Battle of the Valleys. I'm going where it's nice and cool down in the shade.
Shades Valley, the home team here. My numbers spit out Pinson as a huge favorite, but I will say a lot of the numbers here do kind of work on past success with overall pedigree of programs, and typically Pinson Valley is that program that has that pedigree over, at least in recent history, over Shades Valley. Obviously, when the Nixes were there, had a lot of success there with Bo and Caleb and, of course, Patrick being the coach. But, Shades Valley, they are hosting Pinson Valley. If they win, they get 4th. If Pinson wins, they will get 4th as long as they don't lose that last game. I remember who they play, maybe Huffman. Clay Chaltville and Oxford, though, that's the matchup in that region. Clay and Oxford are unbeaten in region play. Winner here gets the region title. If Oxford wins, they still have Centerpoint. Technically, Centerpoint could cause some chaos, but it's Clay Chaltville. We've seen Clay Chaltville.
Yeah, and Oxford, obviously, they've got this new facility. It's been all over social media lately. They put like 50 pictures of it on there. A fantastic new facility. They've got the motivation. I just don't think they got the players. Clay Chaltville's as good as we've seen.
They are. Clay Chaltville looking to run the table here. They beat, I don't even remember what the score was last week for Huffman, but Huffman still has not scored a point yet this season.
Wasn't it 80 something?
It was, I want to say it was like 75 or something,
Yeah,
but it was close.
crazy.
It was a blowout. They scored, I think, 51 in the first half, which is fourth most ever in the first half. Do you know who number one most points scored in the first half ever in an AHSAA game is?
No.
Why would I be asking that question?
Well, it's either Thompson or Homewood.
It would be Homewood
Okay.
against Ramsey, I believe, in 2012. And you're talking about Ruben Nelson with Shades Valley. He was the coach at Ramsey when that happened. I think it was his first year. He used that as motivation. The year they won the state championship, we went to go talk to him. We were back in radio. We went and did like an interview with him and sat down. And it's like, what's your motivation for this year? How you going to turn this team around? And he's like, that Homewood game was motivation for me. And he turned it around and won the state championship the next year,
Right.
beat Opelika in that state championship. And, maybe he can use that motivation to get Shades Valley a big win over Pinson
By
Valley
the
as
way,
well.
it's 72-0.
72. I knew it was it's
I thought it might
some
have been 80,
ridiculous.
but it was ridiculous.
Some ridiculous score
Right.
that they got there in that game. 72-0. Clay gets the win over Roxford. So we'll see if Huffman can potentially score a point. I believe they have Pell City this week. I didn't put it on here because it wasn't a big game and it didn't matter because Pell City hadn't won a game. But I believe they have Pell City, so we'll see if they can score a point against Rush Probst. All right, moving on to Class 7A. Mary Montgomery, we mentioned, got a big win over Baker last week. They win the region title if they get a win over Daphne this week. Daphne sitting at 3-1. Daphne can move up with a win and potentially put them into region title contention based on non-region wins, but a loss could potentially put them in danger of missing with Foley coming up next week. And Foley sitting on the outside playing Davidson this week. Foley at 2-2, Davidson at 1-3. This is for fourth as of now in Region 1, but as it stands right now, Mary Montgomery, Baker, Daphne, Foley are your four teams. Davidson trying to fight as that fifth seed. In 7A Region 4, a battle for second place, Bob Jones and Austin. Austin came out of nowhere. They beat James Clemens. Now they're trying to take to Bob Jones, James Clemens beat Bob Jones early in the season. So we'll see if Austin can get the win there. At home in Decatur, they're at 3-2 in region play. Bob Jones at 4-1. If Austin gets the win, they'll move up to second. In Region 2, region outside of Region 3, we're keeping an eye on because of the absolute mass chaos there. But the matchup that we look forward to every single year is Central Phoenix City taking on Auburn.
That's right, Central Phoenix City with Auburn. And we are, the Auburn Tigers have been the heart attack kids all year. We know that, okay? And the heart attack kids, a 1 point game here and there.
That was Lance Taylor crawling in to get his
I thought
headphones.
it was a dog.
He could have just said, give me the headphones.
I thought it was a dog, folks. I don't know if you caught him on camera or not, but that's Lance's lock, man. He reached up there and grabbed that. Hey, listen, we know Central Phoenix City, number one team in the state right now, according to the sports writers. I don't think Auburn's going to have a heart attack this week. I think Central's going to handle them pretty well. They're hurting a little bit in the backfield on offense as Auburn, but, it's still Auburn, Central Phoenix City, two of the best coaches in the state, two of the best teams in the state. We've seen some crazier things happen. We'll flip a coin, but I still got to go with the Red Devils.
Yeah, I mean, look, all signs are pointing to Thompson Central right now again. I know it kind of goes back and forth between Auburn and Central, but this definitely seems to be Central's year. Auburn has not been able to put the points on the board. You mentioned you've talked about it multiple times, their issues on offense, but I like Central in this one. They do officially lock up the region title with a win because they're a game ahead. It's a 9-team region down there, so every team has a bye at a weird place. I think their bye is next week, so they will officially lock up the region title. But I mentioned in the first segment, Auburn losing puts them in a wild tiebreaker behind that, will cause some chaos. We'll talk about that.
Right.
I'll look at that when it actually happens because we got to see what happens with Dothan, Enterprise, and Opelika behind them as well. Speaking of Opelika and Enterprise, they do play this week. Opelika 4-2 in region play, Enterprise at 3-2. This game is actually on Thursday. Enterprise would move to second with a win, and that Auburn loss we're assuming will happen. Opelika has got to win, or it'll come down to Dothan the next week. I mean, I don't even know what to think about this region. It's all over the place.
I don't either. I think this is going to be a closer game. I know Enterprise, coming off that tough loss, but I think Opelika is going to give them a good game. I think that here's the difference to me in that game. Opelika's got to travel down to Enterprise, and Enterprise is a tough place to play. Great facilities. I'm going with Enterprise on
I'm going with Enterprise, too. I'm going with Enterprise by about a score in this game, and that then puts them up into a pretty good position because of that win over Auburn. Literally 3 one-point games with Auburn and various teams is what has decided this region, so that's how close all the teams are there behind Central Phoenix City. All right, up into Region 3, and I only mentioned all these games because these will basically lock up playoff spots. Hoover, they're at Chelsea. If they win, they'll lock up the playoff spot. Technically still alive for third if Vestavia loses out, which we don't necessarily expect to happen because Oak Mountain is Vestavia this week. They don't lock up third. They would need to beat County or have Hoover lose to Thompson to lock up third next week, which we would expect to happen. But basically, Vestavia will be third. Hoover over Chelsea would give them fourth. Hewitt over Spain Park. Spain Park's played better, but Hewitt, if they get the win over Spain Park, they would be second, and then Thompson would lock up the region with a win over Tuscaloosa County.
Well, we think, pretty good odds of that's happening. I tell you, out of those 4 teams that you just named, 4 games you just named, don't be so sure that Chelsea's not going to be up for a game against Hoover. I'm not convinced on Hoover yet. I mean, I told you who they won, who they beat this year. Chelsea is coming on strong. They're playing tough. They've been looking for this game. It's at Chelsea. I don't know. I'm not saying Hoover's going to lose it. I'm just going to say Chelsea is going to play a very hard ball game. Look,
the truth is we see these teams when they play Thompson.
Right.
And it's a different ball game when you play Thompson or even Hewitt or Vestavia compared to, when you see Chelsea against County or Oak Mountain or Spain Park. And they've competed in a lot of those other games with the lower teams down there. So Hoover, with the struggles they've had this season, it wouldn't shock me if it's a little closer than a typical Hoover-Chelsea game would be. I do think Hoover still wins here. My lines are all over the place when it comes to who's going to win. It's just like blowout, 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 blowout.
Right.
And look, don't be surprised if Spain Park gets Hewitt Trustful a game either, because big loss for Hewitt against Thompson.
Right.
Which once again, that's all we've seen is when they play Thompson. Huge win against Vestavia. That then it's like, okay, we've locked up second place, but Spain Park, they're pretty much out of it. But if they can come in and, have a good showing here, that can kind of build for the future with Tim Vakakis and what he's doing there with the Jaguars. But
I remember I've said this before. A few years ago, Gadsden City was the number 4 seed. Hewitt was number 1 seed. Came into Hewitt. Gadsden hit a pass down the left side to the kid. I can't pronounce his name now. I forgot where he went. I think to Auburn, the wide receiver. Starts with an M anyway, long word. I'm sorry. But, so stranger things have happened. Hewitt Trustful every now and then can lay an egg. Will they lay an egg? I doubt it very seriously, but you're right.
Gaston City this year for Hewitt Trustful, it was a struggle for them. Played Central, got beat pretty bad by Central as well. Yeah. So they've had some, and of course Thompson was 40-14. So they've had some not great games this year, but this past week they totally turned that around and just absolutely dominated Vestavia. That's why Peyton Floyd was our Milo's player of the week. But anyway, we'll be on the call. Tuscaloosa County at Thompson. Thompson will lock up the region title with a win. Where can everybody watch that?
WarriorNationNetwork.org. You can watch it on the NFHS network with a subscription, or you can listen for free if you want to just listen to the game. We got a lot of people that take their phones in to other games from all over the basically Region 3, and they listen to the Thompson game on their phones in their earbuds. So WarriorNationNetwork.org if you want to listen to the Thompson game.
We'll be on that call for that game. We'll have all the scores for you during that game as well. And, of course, you can listen to our pregame show. Pitch the pregame show. We never talk about the pregame show.
At 6 o'clock. It'll be on Facebook Watch, which is go to Thompson Athletics Facebook page is the easiest way to do it. And you can watch John and I, and we'll always have an interesting guest, but Tim will be hosting it. So, we'll be ready. It's a fun show to do and a fun show to watch.
Kind of our own college game day that we do in there.
It's kind of like we pattern it after college game day. But Facebook page, Thompson Athletics Facebook page, 6 o'clock. Then you switch over to Warrior Nation Network if you want to watch or hear the game.
Watch that game there. And, Thompson could potentially lock up the region with a win there. And then next week will be Thompson Hoover. Completely lost its luster, but, we'll see where things are when we get back on next round preps next week and see what other playoff spots have been locked up. A lot could potentially be locked up this week, but a lot more chaos could be caused this week as well. We'll break it all down for you and really look forward to the brackets even more next week, right here on Next Round Preps.